Hi, I am Kristine McGlinchey-Yap, and thank you for joining the Moments of Clarity conversation series. Today, I am joined by my dear friend, Ash Johns. She's a conscious business strategist and an ancestral healer. Thank you so much, Ash, for being here today.
It's so good to be here. Look at this. That's fantastic. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited about this chat and just to honestly spend more time with you
Yeah.
because
So,
we jam like that.
yes, we actually have fun while we're working together, which is amazing. So Ash and I met in a community, like a sisterhood community, Las Comadres. And I remember the day that Ash and I met. She came in like her presence, like you can't ignore Ash. Like she came in, she was like 30 minutes late to this like introduction like session, and there was a seat like right in front of me which someone was sitting in. She just went to like go get a drink, but I was like, no, you can sit here totally, because I already knew, like I was drawn to Ash instantly. And Ash just started talking, and she was just like, this is my story, like unapologetic. Like she just went full ham into like the conversation. She's like, I was lost and I couldn't find my way. I was about to give up, but then finally I found my way here. And I was like, man, I need to know this woman. So after the session, I went up to her like on my way out, and I was like, I just need to know you. Like, I don't know what we can be doing together. At the time, I wasn't even fully aware of like ancestral healing or any of that. So we exchanged contact info, and it was like synergy, like right away. So
Oh man, you got like seriously, there's like tears in my eyes as you recap that because yeah, it's always beautiful to hear the other person's full details of what it was like to meet you.
mhm.
And that was really beautiful. Thank you. Because that day was wild. As you know, I was like fresh in a breakup. I had to like lean into myself and my guides in order for me to show up. And then when I was there, yeah, it was just a beautiful room. And I'm so grateful that there's so many levels of overlap that we didn't know were in the making. You know, we have similar backgrounds as far as being in creative corporate careers and then coming into spirituality. And so this overlap of like sisterhood, support, stepping forward in entrepreneurship, but staying grounded in spirit and healing was it was there for us. So
Yeah.
it's awesome.
Yeah, because I just knew. And when I went into that meeting, I set an intention of finding like a business coach, because I remember I was probably, I think the baby might have been like 2 months old at the time. And I just really needed support because I knew that I wanted to grow my business. My maternity leave was coming up. So I really set the intention. I was like, I need to find like a mentor, someone who will help me like with the foundation of my business. And the woman I first started talking to like during that session, I was like, okay, like maybe it could be her, but I don't really like feel it. But she ended up introducing me to someone else who was a beautiful connection. But then when I booked my discovery call with you, I was like, oh no, like this is Ash. And so like you were actually the first person that I invested in, and it was scary, you know, because at the time it was like I was transitioning, I wasn't making as much money, because I was on maternity leave. And, you know, it was the first time I really invested in myself, which was like a really beautiful realization that, you know, you can be held, and, you know, to let go of that like number, like, oh, this is so much money right now. But like it was really the first time I invested in myself. And from then on, like I'm all about investing in other people because I've really seen like the return in it. And like when you invest in yourself from a place of just like gratitude and abundance, and knowing that it's like just from a very positive place, you know, like magic happens. And that's exactly what happened with us as soon as we started working together. So I did Ash's brand. It would be the brand in your voice, right?
Yeah, brain in your truth.
Yeah.
And I think we did include some of, because obviously now since we've been working together in other capacities, I can't wait to talk about that part. My business has changed. So it was brain in your truth. I think I was just calling it spiritual branding conscious business because it did include some like, how do we do pricing? How do you want to show up? What are your packages going to look like? Um, and yeah, I actually didn't know that. I didn't know that I was your first person investing in. And I'm happy to hear that because, yeah, if it's our first time, sometimes there's a lot of resistance or like nervousness. Will I be held? What's going to be the return for this.
Mhm.
But what I look for, and I think you were doing even unconsciously, was like, will I be held? Am I willing to jump all the way in and trust? And is this person coming towards me with their expertise and their like zeal and their passion for the work that they do, and meeting energetically in the same way? Because from my end, while you were being like, oh my God, I'm doing this, I'm investing in, my feeling was like, okay, I want to make this a perfect landing spot. I'm really in the details of what is Kristine really saying? Where are the blind spots? Where are the part that she's afraid to speak forward? How can we lean into that? How do we pull in her ancestors? How is spiritually held? And then translates physically, right?
Mhm.
Physically in our world. And yeah, that's what I was experiencing the whole time, was like, I'm so excited for this journey and I am walking with you in
Yeah.
this. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's really what it felt like because so Ash's process, she, guides you through. So it was 6 months, right? About 6 months.
Yeah. We worked together. Yeah, we did. I think it was.
It was about
It
six
seems
months.
like forever ago, even though it also seems like really recent.
No, it's like, it seems like years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. It
I
was.
was a 6 month program, if I'm not mistaken. Um,
Mhm.
but Ash's process is like, it's just so amazing because she really helps you clear the space to lay a foundation for a conscious business. So, a lot of people are out of alignment with, their career paths, what they're doing. Even if you're an entrepreneur, you might have a business, but you're not really upholding the principles and, taking your ancestors into account. Like it
Mhm.
unpacked so many like belief systems and things and like programming, and I was like, wow, this is why I come, like this is where I come from, like this is why my survival instinct is to like overwork, be an achiever. I really found out that I came from a lineage of like very strong, powerful women who just felt subservient to like patriarchy and men, and who just weren't recognized, who were constantly like being felt like being like viewed as less than.
Mhm.
So a lot of the time, like that's why I felt like it was like I had to show up in so many like more ways. Like I had to constantly overwork and overachieve because, all of the limiting beliefs of the patriarchy. So it's a
Mhm.
really interesting process. And, at the time when I was building the company with Ash, I really was passionate about maternity consulting because I just went through, my motherhood journey and seeing the ways in Western medicine and how, our power was stripped away from us during the birthing process, just, being a part of it recently myself. And like even then I'm taking pieces of that and what we built together, and like it's just evolved like to so
Mhm.
much more. And
Mhm.
originally I thought that I was just going to leave PR behind, but then I was like, no, wait, like you also get to do this. And so,
Yeah.
like, Ash and I are working together on a PR partnership now,
Yeah.
where I'm helping her with her visibility and her, PR reach.
Yeah.
So it's just so many things. Like you think that you're going to start off one way and then it just ends up evolving into like this beautiful, just like so much more. And it was just such a meaningful experience to know someone like believes in your vision, because at the time I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. I don't know, like maybe it could work. But Ash was like,
Mhm.
no, girl, like
This
this is
is it. Let's get in it. Yeah. And it's just like, and just what you've shared, I'm sure there's some people who are listening to this being like, yeah, that makes sense, like nodding head. It's until you get into the depths of it, until you're witnessed in it, until you experience the shaking of your body and your spirit and your ancestors around you, until you truly get a chance to taste and validate what your vision is coming outside of you, it doesn't really make sense. Like the words we're saying only hold so much gravity. And there was a couple things, if it's okay for us to share, that I remember being so amazing in your journey, is that yes, there was this women have to do more, push more in this masculine patriarchal world. You also had this, I'm not in the forefront, I support other people, so I'm working really, really hard to support other people. If I work less and I'm in the front line, that's like a no, like that's not even tangible, not only in your world as an individual programming, but ancestrally. And then as a collective of women, we're underneath this. A lot of women are underneath that same experience. So we have three different layers playing out at all given times: our own programming and lived experience, which is individualized but also inherited by the collective, right, culturally, and also by your ancestors. So you've got those three things going around. It makes us move so much slower in really actualizing and birthing our spiritual callings and the tools that we picked up in this lifetime.
Mhm.
So what I'm seeing in like traditional coaching, traditional, whatever that means, 'cause it's such a new industry, is like everyone, we're coming from it in general from like, what's your goals? What's blocking you? What's your mindset? And then that's it. But after you take those steps and you shift your mindset and you're still seeing those same recurring patterns, or you're still doubting yourself in your core, that's cultural collective and that's ancestral wounds.
Yeah.
And like there was something that clicked for you. And it's, yes, there's a stereotype and a truth to being like Asian women are subservient. Like, you know, a little bit roll our eyes because there's a truth and there's also like, but why? Can we heal that original wound? Because it's not true. We have very strong ancestry who are resilient women. So how is the resilience and the strength actually being used against the culture, against the women, against the people? Because let's get into that and it'll shift the whole energetic behavior from your ancestors and to you. And then there was a moment when you connected with your ancestors where they were like, love, like this is who we are. And they showed you everything and you got their blessings and you came out of that being like, all this stuff that I knew is completely valid and they're with me. Like they need me to do this. It's like your passion, your purpose became so real that you just began living it in a way that all of your PR and all of your ways of serving just serve that, as opposed to
I'm
building these
right
things.
now, like just
Right?
thinking about it.
I was just like, this is a truly holistic
Yeah.
and actual process that I was honored to be with you and your people and to continually see you doing it. And you're right. If the tables turn, like it lights up my spirit that my clients, I become clients. Like we're in deeper community as a result. Yeah.
It's such a beautiful, like and going through like the self-help process, like, shifting mindset, but that really, like what you just said, like we have to, and there's a quote that like I love of yours, I put it everywhere, about like our lives not being our own.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's so true. Like we do all the work and we find ourselves in that place. Like, but I've done all the self-help. I've done all of the seminars. I've went to all the workshops. Like I'm operating from a place of authenticity. Why? Why am I still stuck? Why am I still feeling this? Like, why is this coming up? And it's ancestral wounds. And once you
Yeah.
connect with that part of you, and for so long I denied like who I was. I like did everything I could to not learn about like my family because
Mhm.
it was uncomfortable, and you just want to assimilate. Like you just want to be American and you want to assimilate and be in like belonging, all of that. But then like there's something truly profound and beautiful when you discover that part of you and you heal it. And
Yeah.
like everything else just, and I think ancestral healing is what we're finding like mainstream. Like I don't think people don't want to do the work because it's so uncomfortable. So people are like,
And afraid, right? Afraid of what they're going to find. Like all of us have some type of a history with our ancestors that we're like, let me just move forward. Let me just build forward. But I'm like, we got all these bones that need a blessing and a healing. And there's wisdom in there too. It's not all just the wounds. Like there's things that are reclaimed in the process. And yeah, people aren't willing to do the work, or they're afraid to do the work, or they're curious and want to like walk around the work and just look at it instead of diving in. Yeah.
yeah, but and that's, Ash and I, our mission is to make ancestral healing mainstream. Like, why aren't we talking about ancestral healing like we're talking about yoga and meditation? Like, it should be like daily practice. Like, everyone should be like, especially where we see ourselves now in 2020, like, this work is so much more important. Like, it
Yeah.
always was important, but now, like, we're seeing and unearthing. And if you follow Ash on Instagram at Ash Inspires, and you follow, sign up for her newsletter is like amazing. It's like a mini magazine basically. Um, like
I'm always like, yay.
I'm always like, highlight this and take this out, because it really is like the ways that we're operating, and we just get so boggled down by like, the day to day. And, as women and, stepping into motherhood, like Ash and I had this whole long conversation as well about like stepping into motherhood. Why is it that we allow ourselves to be less than and to give our bodies to Western medicine and just say nod our head along the process without voicing our opinions about what we actually truly want? And in that process, like recently I was speaking to someone who was pregnant, and she was telling me that her doctor I was telling her, you know, create your birth plan, here's my template. And she was like, oh, I tried to give my doctor my birth plan, and he said, like, no, he doesn't take birth plans. Like
Wow.
he's like, oh, I know what I'm doing. Like I don't need your birth plan. I'm like, girl,
Yeah, that's
doctors
exit.
hate that.
Like, get out of there. Yeah.
That
It
is
is. It's like this, like wanting us to be on autopilot, and ancestrally and in our own spirit ancestrally, we have the right, like, we know what's best for us. And without pausing and getting into it, we won't really stand in our voice and choose to pivot when situations like that come up, or whether it's in motherhood or like your conception journey, which you've also been supportive of me or supporting me in that process. And also with business, like in all things, when we aren't rooted in ourselves and our people, where we come from, regardless of your background, we all had original ways of like listening to spirit, rooting in each other, trusting ourselves, honoring our roots, so that the ecosystem of our life would actually flow, you know, and we can, yeah, survive in a different way that's not so re-traumatizing. That's what it's like. He's setting her up for more traumatization, literally.
And I think what really illuminated, like one thing that I was always drawn to, like in my life, was, you know, astrology, nature. But then one thing that you illuminated for me was like, no, your ancestors, like these are the rituals, like these are the things that your ancestors have done and cultivated for generations. Like this is what they believe in. So like
Mm,
even like small things that were like, oh, I enjoy this hobby, like I might enjoy gardening or I enjoy plants, but where do you get that from? Like that,
yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
I've learned that ritual, and Ash is a great teacher with this about like those rituals, and she always says, like you have to be in relationship, like just don't like say
Yeah.
hi to them from far away, like be in relationship with them, like talk to them, like trust them, like honor them, see how they show up for you in ways,
Mm.
because they're very much like alive.
Around you and around you, which brings up a point of like, a lot of times when people are talking about ancestors or ancestral healing right now, it's through psychology. What are you thinking? What did you inherit? How were you taught to think? Or, you know, survivor. And then the other piece is like somatically finding the trauma to release in your body, like trauma release healing. Not a lot of people are working with the actual ancestors in ritual and teaching you how to have an altar or a sacred space, or to be in community with them and listen to your spiritual gifts and wisdom from your body, like wisdom from them speaking through your body instead of the healing of your body. Like they are outside of you, around you, you know?
Right.
And so, yeah, coming back to birth, because that's really phenomenal. You hear stories of women going through their labor process and saying it's otherworldly, and feeling other women around them spiritually supporting them, because the wisdom of our ancestors, it's in our body, and they're also standing around us. Like that's the only way I can really drive the point home, that it matters in every aspect of our life of how they support us. Yeah.
Yeah. And you said, like, I think we actually did the ancestral meditation and the mother wound meditation like right off the bat.
Yeah.
Because you were like, you have to clear all of this. You have to be in touch with this before you could even move on to. So
Yeah.
yeah, you want to create a business, great, that's nice, but there's like levels and there's foundational pieces that need to be set up. And it's true, because the way I stepped into it thinking, okay, this is the business I want to create, this is the mindset, whatever. But when I got in touch with like that core of like my ancestors, the mother wounds, I was like, whoa, okay, let me take a step back. And then I could really appreciate where I was coming from in my business, and like really holding space and value of like, okay, now I could step into the work, because
Yeah.
it did feel.
Yeah. Did you feel like that was a moment of like truly believing in your work?
It definitely was. It was definitely, I don't want to say like the validation, but it definitely was like this just spiritual coming, like awakening, I would say. It was more like an awakening, like this is your path, like it's okay. Like it was like a very like delicate, it was just, I don't know, there are no words to like
Yeah.
describe it,
Yeah.
because it's
Yeah.
so much more than validation, you know.
Yeah. It was like to me, I describe it, the only way I can describe it is like an illumination of like, yes, look at all of the intricacies, the simplicity of this work. It is needed. Yeah, it's the word validation doesn't feel right, but it is something around like, maybe settling in, or like you taste the flavor of it a little bit differently, or it's settled in your energetic body a little bit more? I don't know, but
I would, yeah. It is like a settling because it kind of like lives outside of you, and then once you process it, it's like, okay, this is mine now. Like this is my path, and this is my, and you talk a lot about like liberation work and like freedom through this healing, and I would say very much so. It was a very like liberating experience. It's like, okay, like it's okay to be who you are now, like as if I needed permission, but almost like I almost did. It was,
yeah, I get that.
yeah.
And I think it's different between permission externally, because here's what happens on the internet and like coaches and like, online entrepreneurs. We're looking at all these different people and being like, oh, they're doing it this way. And that means that's how I'm supposed to do it. And that's what the industry price point is, or the way the marketing, the market works. But yet when we come into ourselves and then you got that ancestral deepening and clearing around it, it's like, I have permission to create this, offer it, speak about it, move at my own pace because it's my own thing. I'm in service to myself and the world in this way. It might not look the same, or it might look similar, but it tastes or it feels differently. And I can do that. I can totally do that and not worry about being misunderstood or, it not being real because I do it differently.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Think so. I really just wanted to share, like, this piece of my journey and this piece of your work, because I think it's so important for women to understand that, it's, beyond the external, beyond the self-help, the development, like spirit guide work, mediumship, all of that. Like, this is, I think a lot of us struggle with belonging and
Mm-hmm.
finding a place, and being women. Like there's just so many external factors, like the patriarchal systems, like everything. Like we live so much outside of our bodies. And I think that just, through ancestral healing, which is a modality that I would say like not a lot of people may be familiar with mainstream as, or it was approachable as like energy work or like, mediumship and all of that. But it's a very important like practice, and it is approachable, and it is, it's very needed. It's very healing. And, I encourage everyone to book a session with Ash.
Thank you. I think it's so needed, especially because if we're saying we want to see a different world, and a lot of us as coaches and healers and therapists or like creative entrepreneurs, we're doing it from heart. Like we're doing it for a reason. Otherwise, we'd all still have our 9 to 5s in the corporations or the nonprofits or whatever, right? Like we're leaving them, or we're on a strategy to leave them for a reason. And so when we think about what our businesses represent as it relates to contributing to an evolving world, an evolving collective, then that means we have to get into the roots and do things differently. If we continue to offer something that's healing, but we do it in the same way of like fear and lack and like othering and distrust, that energy translates through. So we're making the money or making the connections, but yet we're never really getting into a core healing that we can then continually live in and evolve from. So that's the reason why it's ancestral healing, the spiritual and the ritual, plus coaching, plus conscious business or brand strategy, spiritual brand strategy. Because I do think that us as entrepreneurs and as women and women identifying people, holding divine feminine, the world is changing. We're going from the patriarchal rule to the matrilineal, the matriarchal nurturing, and we can do that abundantly. So yeah, thanks for that. I hope to work with many more people, but I'm so grateful that we met and that we're working together. And I would also say, a lot of times in this internet world of businesses, people think that it's always competition, and it's not. Like we are an example of someone trusting and showing up and then delivering that work and holding that journey and that process. And then literally the tables have been turned, and I'm trusting now my growth and my vision to you, Kristine, you're awesome at PR, like spiritual PR. I know that I don't have to explain and like validate or like manipulate or reduce what ancestral healing is, because you understand it yourself and you're championing me. So that's women working together, and I just appreciate that so much. Yeah.
So beautiful. And, we hope to inspire and, create more communities and ways for, women to work together. And, Ash is a former ad executive, like working on huge brands, so, and I'm a corporate PR person. And then, look where we are today. I'm here championing, maternal rights, and Ash is healing the collective through necromancy, she loves to say, because to make it abundantly clear to people.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. Because sometimes people are like, yeah, ancestors. And I'm like, we're really talking to the dead people.
Oh,
Like
you're
they're
gonna see
going
your
to,
ancestors.
yeah. And everyone thinks it's going to be scary. It's really not. Like, and we can, that's part of the ownership of this, of reclaiming your spiritual gifts and birthrights. We all have it, regardless your background, where you're from. Is you're developing, as you said, a relationship with them. So you talk to them like, hey, I would like for you to give me a sign that you're here, and make it gentle. Let me understand this. Like, integrate into my life, but also hold my boundaries. It's not to connect to your ancestors and they run your life. It's for you to be in right relationship and be further supported and understand who you are. So
Right. No,
yeah.
it's a beautiful process. And just if anyone is curious, so for me, my ancestors show up as butterflies. Like they made it abundantly clear, like we're butterflies. So I'll be looking out the window, or I'll be like taking a walk, and then like these beautiful, there was 3 of them that I met during my ancestral meditation who I'm in relationship with. And they'll just show up. Like I'll see like 3 butterflies, and
Mm,
it's beautiful. It really is a beautiful experience, because it always puts a smile on my face, because I know that I could recognize and I can honor them, and they're doing the same to me. Like it makes you feel like you're not alone, and it's there's something special that happens when you're really in touch with that part of you, and knowing that your family is like blessing you and is there to support you and sharing encouraging messages. It's not scary at all. It
yeah.
really isn't. Like people aren't going to just show up, and it's not like any of that. And that's another thing, like society has made like spirituality like the scary thing of like monsters and like demons, and it's not. It's like a beautiful like healing experience. So
Yeah. I love how also if we all took the time in some way, shape, or form, and I know history sometimes has destroyed some of this, but and when we trace back our roots in some ways, if you look across the world, we all come back to animism. We all come back to ancestor reverence, of honoring the dead, the transitions of life and then living and then death and then rebirth. Like that is how it goes, And so doesn't matter where you're from. If you go back far enough, you see these same practices of connecting with ancestors across the land. So I think in our modernity and in our tech and like this next evolution of the consciousness, we're just reclaiming and maybe doing it a little bit differently. We're sitting in our homes as opposed to being out in the middle of the forest, doing these things. But yeah,
yeah,
so
so it's
good.
really a beautiful process. And we just want people to get back in touch with the roots again, like the maternal, like let's go back to our sacred ways, uphold ancient traditions. Because the patriarchy isn't working. It's clearly failing all of us. So let's go back to the ways in which we were held and we were safe, and we created community for women. And we didn't have to feel persecuted, or as if we were like witches.
Yeah,
It's a very safe space to
yeah,
create a better future for all of us, and our children. Let's teach them that too. Let's not allow them to be disconnected. I think that's our main goal here. Like Ash said, like just building a better future for all of us. So
yeah. Thank you. So good.
you can follow Ash on Instagram, and I'll put links in the video. But Ash is at Ash Inspires, and her website is ashleyjohns.com. So you could schedule a consult and get on her waiting list for 2021. And you can follow me at Mommas, and all the links will be below. And thank you so much for joining me today. I will talk to you guys soon. Thank you very much.